Hello, everyone listening, and welcome to the Natural Podiatry Program. My name is Nick, and my teaching partner today is Andy, and we have the honor of teaching this first lesson of the Natural Podiatry Program. So thank you for being here, and also thank you for helping to pioneer a natural approach to podiatry, because this is like literally the undertaking we're trying here. And so thank you for being part of it. Our aim is to share everything we know in hopes that it will be critiqued and eventually replaced as we continue learning together. And today we're discussing three main topics. The first one is going to be the concept of being a health generalist with a specialty. We're going to unpack the concept that I call the tree of understanding. And we're also going to unpack health into the framework of the 6 pillars. And we're going to cap the conversation at 30 minutes. So I'm going to start my timer now to make sure we don't go over that. This is sort of our first time playing with this format, but I think it's going to go well. So let's start by talking about the idea of being Andy, thanks for being here. I totally forgot to say hi.
Thanks for having me. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank us for having each other.
That's right.
I'd love to hear your perspective when it comes to the idea of being a health generalist with a specialty. And if we contrast that to the notion of being just a straight up specialist, or I would even argue in today's world, a hyper specialist in the world of symptom management. And if we contrast that to a generalist in the world of health, I think there's a big difference. So let's hear your thoughts on what it means to you to be a health generalist with a specialty.
Well, I think in podiatry school, we learn a very focused view of the foot, and then everything else is not even considered. And we do learn obviously whole body systems, but I think as a health generalist with a specialty, it gives you a different view to be able to help someone. And if you're not doing that, you're kind of missing out. You are definitely missing out on an ability to help your clients get better, because if you're only looking at the foot, you're missing out on so much of what will help someone improve. And so it's almost crazy to think that we have to even talk about this. It should be a given that, yes, we're a health generalist with a specialty in feet, and other health practitioners might specialize in the shoulder, or a psychologist it might be specializing in the mind, but we should all be having an overall view of our health as a total thing, rather than these specialties. And it empowers clients when you ask them questions about the rest of their health, and it opens their eyes to the fact that those factors are important for their health as well, and for their foot health. Yeah.
Really well said. And, my take is that people working within health should understand and also be in good health. Like you said, it almost seems silly to say this, right?
Yeah.
But, I think it's really important to really open up this whole discussion saying like people working in health should understand and be in good health. It seems like a no-brainer, but I've found it to be not so obvious, and actually the opposite in today's world, right? Like some people who work in, and I wouldn't even say health, I would say disease, like diagnosis and symptom management. Like we just acknowledge that as like the primary industry that we, unintentionally brand as health, but is not health, right? Like diagnosis of disease and treatment of symptoms is not health. Maybe that's a good place to start. But the health professionals, quote unquote, that I know, some are healthy, many are not, and most of them don't even understand health. And it's not surprising, right? Because we're not taught health. I wasn't taught health. I went to physio school. I wasn't taught health. I was taught how to identify disease and treat symptoms. And so, not only that, but we're usually hyper specialized, right? We work in disease management. We're hyper specialized with an approach that's really based on symptom treatment. And, like podiatry sits there, right? It's not only specialized in MSK health, it's hyper specialized in MSK health of the foot itself.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to get this across that having a specialty is a bad thing, because it certainly isn't. As a physio, I'm still specialized. I'm not as hyper specialized in one body part, but I'm specialized in musculoskeletal health, right? Not mental health, not food, not, sleep, like just MSK health. That's it. Stay there. And the weird thing is that in order for me to be a healthy individual, because people who work in health should be in good health and understand health, I need to understand all the other parts too. So for me to be hyper specialized and to literally ignore everything else at my own detriment makes no sense. So I think a generalist really has a basic understanding of every pillar of health for the sake of their own health, because people working in health should understand health. And I actually think having a specialty is good. I don't think being a specialist is a bad thing, or even a hyper specialist, right? You focus on learning something very specific to be the best in the world in a certain area. And that's kind of important. That's what we all need to do in order to cover all the areas well. But this can't be done while ignoring all the other pillars of health, right? You can't be an effective health professional if you don't understand health. And so, like my definition of health is spending energy on the daily process of learning how to better take care of myself. What's your definition of health that you use, like sort of as a mental model?
To be ticking the boxes, and we're going to talk about a bit more with pillars of health, but to daily be ticking those boxes, where making sure that I'm addressing the pillars of health on a daily basis, so that I can function well, so that I can be a happy, healthy human and help other humans, basically. So that's look after myself so that I can help others.
And the 2 points there that I'm taking out that are important, I think process and daily, right? It's a daily process. It doesn't end. You keep going.
And I think it's important to say that we have a great opportunity as health generalists with a specialty to open up our clients' eyes that it's more than just about that specialty. And so that and that can just be in the way we ask our questions, and to get them to realize that other health professionals that they're dealing with should be working the same way, that there's a new expectation for health professionals, that it won't. If you go and see your GP and you've got a sleeping problem, you don't just get given the tablet. Your GP should be someone that's looking at the whole spectrum of health as well. Like every GP being a general practitioner, for those not here in Australia. So I think we've got a great opportunity without the way we approach our clients for them to change their understanding of what seeing someone should be like. And that will have an effect on their health. And then when they increase their expectations, it actually, it forces other people to change as well. So, yeah,
well said. And I think, we have doctors that are in the Footnote program, and they probably consider themselves health generalists with a specialty in medicine, right? Yeah. Like that's a good specialty. It's an important specialty. And like the mental model that I like to use is an I-shaped, symptom treater. I used to call it Health Pro, but like an I-shaped symptom treater has a narrow breadth of knowledge, but a very deep understanding, which is great. The deep understanding part's great. But if you have a narrow understanding of health, you can't be fully effective, because like we're going to talk about in the pillars of health, everything is bidirectionally interdependent. You can't affect one without affecting all the others, or ignore one and expect the others to get better. Whereas the T-shaped health professional has a wide breadth of health understanding that's shallow, so knows the essentials to be a healthy human on every pillar, and then has a deep understanding on their specialty. Maybe they choose to be just a generalist, right? A horizontal line of like, they know a little bit about a lot of things, enough for them to be healthy, therefore enough to guide other people to be healthy. But some people will get a specialty and want to go real deep in a certain topic. Maybe that's feet. Maybe that's maybe that's food. Maybe that's sleep, whatever it is. And if we're all on the same page, then we can all kind of direct our people based on what level they're at. Like if they need a shitload of help with food, well, we should probably send them to a health generalist with a specialty in food. Right? Because a nutritionist is not a T-shaped health professional. They're an I-shaped health professional. They have a very narrow understanding, or a narrow breadth that's very deep, but I don't actually think it's deep with the right stuff. And I welcome the conversation with any nutritionist to just, talk about bringing it back to food, which is one of our pillars. So go from an I-shaped to a T-shaped health professional. And I think healthy professionals empower healthy patients. And that's really where this all comes about. Cool. So next concept, tree of understanding. And this is all these three things that we're covering today are frameworks, and they're not, maybe I'll talk about tree of understanding, because this will make more sense after we talk about tree of understanding. So the tree of understanding is a mental model that I've been using for a while now. And essentially it helps guide me towards first principle thinking. Right. So starting with the most basic fundamentals that I know to be true, and then slowly moving towards more specific knowledge that is more contextual and more nuanced, but not as fundamental. Right. And so the emphasis should be on the fundamentals. and less importance should be placed on contextual specifics. And I'll give examples of that. So the best way to get this across is just probably a metaphor of a tree. That's my favorite way of doing it. So 4 parts of this tree. You have the roots, which to me represent identity, my values, my level of self-awareness. So that's like what everything's built on, right? So you got the roots, which are identity, values, self-awareness. And then you have the trunk of the tree, which is first principles. These are things that we literally know to be true. They're true in terms of like natural laws of physiology. Like, for example, my favorite 3 first principles when it comes to the body are: the body is a self-healing organism. The body is a self-organizing system of systems. So it heals itself. It knows how to organize itself optimally. And then the SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demand. The body will adapt directly based on the inputs we give it. And so taking that approach, really, like, those are 3 important things to know deeply. And we'll probably talk more about them in later lessons, but that's the trunk. The branches are heuristics and sort of like a general root cause awareness of what causes us problems. And then the leaves are specific contextual knowledge. And that could be things like facts or research studies or a diet or an exercise program. So they're very context specific. I think what I see often is people focus so much on the leaves, right? Oh, this study or this diet or this thing. And if we literally just buckled down and stuck with the roots and the trunk and like agreed on the really important first principles, then the leaves can be different for each of us, and that's okay. But we got to agree on the really important shit. And so that's sort of the mental model of how to hierarchically rank what information is most important, and what information should we spend a lot of time focusing on and getting right, and what information should we take with a grain of salt because it's so context specific that it might not even be relevant for us or the people we work with. So yeah, what's your thoughts on the tree of understanding?
Like, to make it more, what I thought about was to make it more relevant to how we see natural podiatry, where that falls in for podiatrists.
Yes.
This program is for podiatrists, and we're not trying to teach you how to be a podiatrist again. And this is why it's good to have this lesson straight up, so that people have different expectations. If they have different expectations, we're just going to reassign their expectations so they understand what we're going to be teaching them. In that model that you just spoke of, maybe podiatry school was the branches where you learned this fundamental how the foot works, basically. We can't reteach you that. We don't want to reteach you that. To see those branches, though, this is just like this little analogy I came up with. We're kind of looking through a lens or looking down a tunnel at those branches that we were taught that's how to look at them, So for me, natural podiatry has been looking from a different perspective at those same branches and going, oh, wow, I can still relate everything I learned back at uni, but in this new model of podiatry, a new way of practicing podiatry using that same core knowledge. And so that's what I hope natural podiatry is going to help other podiatrists do. Just give them a different view of the knowledge they already have. So so in that tree of health, to bring it back to that, I feel, not tree of health, the tree of knowledge. Oh, is that what it was?
Tree of understanding.
Yeah, tree of understanding.
Okay. We know what you mean.
I feel like natural podiatry is just changing the view of some core concepts. Like, you're still going to have those core concepts, but just looking at them from a different angle. And then it probably goes both ways, because that will start making you question some deeper stuff as well. Start questioning other parts of your life because you've just taken a new approach to your work. And so that's what we're going to be doing in these podcasts, explaining how we see the foot and its function and health in a different way, so that you can learn how to explain it and just have a better have a different view. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes a whole lot of sense. And I love how you contextualize it with like a concrete application of podiatry, because, like you said, we're not trying to teach people like, if the branches and the leaves are hierarchically derived from the trunk. Yeah. If we just agree on the trunk, then you're going to have to revise your own branches and leaves eventually, based on the current perspective you hold. And the important thing is, like, let's focus on the trunk. We can appreciate disagreements on the leaves, but they're not that important. Let's agree on the trunk. If we all agree on that, then it's like, okay, we agree on the trunk. We have different views of leaves. How did you get the leaf from the trunk? I'll tell you how I got the leaf from the trunk. We'll see who took a better path.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're all on the same team and we're all going to learn way better when we do this together. I think this is a big reason for natural podiatry. Instead of just you and I and Ray and Steve and Arena having these conversations, be like, oh yeah, let's do this. It's like, if we all do it together and we invite 500 other people, we're going to learn a shitload more than if we just do it with us 5. And so this whole idea of, we hope this is critiqued. We hope this is put to the test by everyone. And the goal is to find some consensus agreement that we all agree that this is the trunk, and we can have productive disagreements about the leaves, being mindful that we agree on the trunk.
Yeah.
And I think we should put this first lesson out on YouTube and just make it for free. And like basically let anyone who's interested in natural podiatry can kind of watch this, get a sense of expectations of what the other lessons will be like.
Yeah.
And if it's not for them, it's not for them. If it is, and they're curious and they want to be part of this, then they'll join. And it's like, let people know, like you said, recalibrate their expectations. What our aim to focus here is on the fundamentals, the simple fundamentals that are extremely important. That can facilitate more conversations in more detail. But the roots in the trunk are really what we're after. We're not going to get caught up in the leaves. I learned leaves in school. I learned shit to memorize. They taught me what to think. They didn't help me understand how to think because they never focused on the trunk. And the cool part is when you teach the trunk, you let everyone determine their own leaves. And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really important. So yeah, let's talk about the pillars of health. And I'll start by explaining the concept, because this is basically the pillars of health is my macro framework of health, which I've just shared a shitload in the past couple of years and gotten a lot of feedback and it's had a lot of refinement and a lot of good disagreements. And until a few months ago, it was 5 pillars. Now it's 6. So I'll explain the rationale behind that. But the pillars of health are a macro framework for unpacking the word health into significant elements that can be that can fit under the health banner. So until probably like 3 months ago, the 5 pillars were movement, food, sleep, mind, and community. Those are still the core 5 pillars. The one addition I've made, I'm spending a lot more of my time now understanding and teaching about Bitcoin for people to understand this new form of sound money that we have. And you can't understand Bitcoin without first understanding money. And by understanding money, I've sort of come to this, realization through a lot of conversations with people way smarter than me, that the way we do money right now and create money out of nowhere in massive quantities is essentially time theft. And if anyone's keen on more resources to understand how I get to that conclusion, we won't talk about it now, but I got tons of podcasts I've recorded and I can direct people to. But if your time is being stolen from you, and health requires time to invest into the process of health, then the keystone pillar for all the other pillars, the what I call the gatekeeper pillar, where without the keystone of the gatekeeper pillar, you can't optimize the other ones, is financial literacy. And so the 5 pillars of health are underlined by financial literacy and understanding money, so that you can use money that protects your time and stop using money that steals your time. And that, to get to that conclusion takes a good amount of work to understand. And, my role now with TFC is essentially helping people understand that element of it, because it took me 8 years to get here and I want to help others get there. But essentially, once you get through that gatekeeper pillar, have a level of financial literacy, you then have the 5 pillars of health, which is like this clay ball that represents health. Each of those 5 elements are bidirectionally interdependent. That's just a fancy way of saying that essentially every pillar both influences and is influenced by every other pillar. That, I don't think people are shocked that everything's connected, but that's essentially how I view health, such that food affects sleep, sleep affects food affects my mind affects the food I eat. And so literally I cannot regulate one pillar in isolation without that affecting all the other pillars. So if my sleep's terrible, then it's going to negatively affect all the other pillars. If my sleep is better, it's going to positively affect all the other pillars. And so being as a physio, I'm working within a hyper specialized element. So the movement pillar is like this giant circle. I'm working in like a tiny little portion of that circle, because I wasn't a movement professional as a physical therapist, which really meant I'm good at pointing out when people's bodies are broken and giving them very simple things to pretend like I'm fixing it. That sounds hard, but like I can say it now because it doesn't matter. It's like, I got a lot from physio school. I'm not saying physio school is bad. I think they're teaching stuff that's like 20 years too old, but regardless, every pillar affects every other pillar in order to be a truly effective health professional, we need to have a basic understanding of all the pillars, and we have to understand how all the pillars connect with each other. And so I think this is the first time I've really officially mentioned that Keystone 6 pillar of financial literacy to you, Andy. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and any questions you've got, because I haven't really put this one into the public domain formally yet. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So is it like time is you could almost call the sixth one, you call it financial literacy, but that's how you manage time, and time gives you
you're right.
Yeah.
So financial literacy means understanding money. What is money? It's tokenized time.
Yeah.
It's how we store our time in some formal unit of exchange that we can use to buy other things, right?
Yeah.
I will do work for you. You give me this monetary energy, which is titled to my time. I want to use that later on in the future. So that's a good way, probably a better way of viewing it. But yeah, financial literacy is really just understanding how tokenized time works, and is really just commanding control over your time.
Yeah. And as a podiatrist, I charge X amount an hour. But if I go and be a gardener and move mulch for the weekend, I charge X, like my time and money is relatable like that. So I think that's important. People to understand that's how I understand it. Anyway, that's where time and money relate. And then when you're looking at Instagram and an ad comes up, someone's paid for that ad to be there. And then my time of looking at that ad, 30 seconds or 3 minutes or whatever it is now, that's my time that I'm spending, because I'm not making money out of that time on someone else's thing. So this is where that time is money, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so,
our attention is time, and we have an attention economy, right? Yeah. That's where it's like attention's super valuable, whether you're selling it or not. Anytime you're looking at something, you're selling your time.
And literacy is our ability to read or understand something. And so financial literacy is understanding this time, money, space. And for our health's sake, like when I have someone come in here and I ask them to make habitual changes to their life that require time and require commitment, then this is how it all relates. Is it?
Yep.
Am I? Yeah. Because that's what we're asking of clients, to make habitual changes, to look at other parts of their life, not just how to wiggle their big toe. We're looking at why their big toe is not recovering, because they're not sleeping well or eating well, or, like all these things are connected. And to make those changes, we need to have time to do it. We're not, and the financial literacy to understand that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And, people ask me, what's the easiest way to get healthy? I often just say, start by learning how to stop using money that steals your time.
Yeah.
It sounds extreme, but this is the essence that I've distilled according to everything I understand now. Because if your time's constantly getting stolen, you're always essentially having to spend more of your time to stay in the same place. And so we're always kind of falling behind, because we're doing more and more and more, having less free time, but we're not actually going any further ahead. And so, I think if we look at health as an inside job where only the individual can reclaim their health, certainly people can help guide them to get there. Only the individual can reclaim responsibility for their health. Reclaiming responsibility requires people to make changes. Making changes requires understanding and time to troubleshoot how to implement those changes.
Yeah.
So the scarce resource, and it's kind of a mental conundrum. It's this blows my mind. Yeah. The notion that health or time is the only scarce resource we have, right? Nothing else is more important than time. You ask a really old person who's rich as hell, what's more important, their wealth or having a bit of extra time? They would say, I want more time, right? Time is the most precious thing. But time is only valuable with health. Because if you don't have health, time is a burden. If you're super unhealthy and in pain, time sucks. If you're healthy and you're happy, time's great. So time is only valuable with health. Health requires time.
Yeah.
So it's a circular thing. But if someone's constantly stealing your time, you have less of it to focus on your health. And when your health gets worse, time's less valuable. And it's a really crazy, I'm still kind of playing with this in my brain. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's financial literacy equals understanding how to control your time. Time is what's necessary for health, both to understand it and implement changes. And so, that's why I see financial literacy, or being able to control your time, as really the gatekeeper pillar to allow you to then begin the process of learning how to be healthy. So,
and from a natural podiatry perspective, this is like huge concepts when someone comes to see you with a sore foot. And so we're not expecting people to be, it's more about us understanding what it's going to take for people to get better. And that's why it's important to make them aware that it's other things other than just changing what they're putting on their foot, so that's where the natural podiatry aspect comes in, that it is a bigger picture thing. And that's easily done. Like I do it every day, asking, and we all do it. We ask people how they are, how's their time? Like, are you busy?
Right.
We're always checking in on time. And, clients send me a message, I can't make today's appointment. I haven't been doing my exercises. I haven't made those changes. Life's too busy. Like these are just things that are happening all the time. Like regularly, I should say, rather than using time in a different context. And a good example was a client I'd booked in for a running lesson this week, and things just got out of hand. And so we put it off. And I said, but I don't want you to waste that time on all these other things that are taking up your space and your time. Go and, go for a walk, practice what we've done before, spend some time on yourself in that time. Like, you don't need me to do that. Like, you can look after yourself without me there to hold your hand, And so that's a lesson in itself. I don't get paid for that. That's fine. I'll just use the time for something else for myself. But, it's not always about what you can do for a client. It's more about teaching them how to do it for themselves to some extent. And like, hopefully that lady that I spoke to goes away with some feeling of, I could do this regularly. There's a better use of her time. And that's going to have a bigger impact on her health overall, because we've actually taught her how to use time for herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I should say that to make financial literacy more concrete, it means, adopting sound money. The only sound money I know of is Bitcoin. So essentially what I mean by the 6 pillars is Bitcoin, which I've been spending a lot of time on. But as just a mental model, I think understanding money, understanding how it plays a role in your life, understanding how money affects the dynamics of your life, right? When people say, I just don't have time for it. I'm so busy. I'm always busy. I have no time. It's like, well, where does your time go? Do you know where your time goes? What do you spend your time on? Does where you spend your time on align with the values that you claim to have, right? The roots of the tree. Like, the classic example is like, well, what matters to you? Well, my family matters, my relationships matter, and my work matters. Okay, well, what do you spend the most time on? Well, I work all day. I spend hardly any time with my family. It's like, whoa, you just said your family was the most important thing, but you don't actually spend time with your family. So what the heck is going on? And it's like, well, I need to work because I need to earn money to support my family. And I can't work any harder, right? Like I'm working the hardest I've ever worked, and I'm making the least I've ever made because everything's so expensive. It's like, that happens because our money's broken. And until people understand money, which I think it's very creepy that we never learn anything about money or health in school ever, right? Like, I did a physio degree. I didn't learn a thing about money or health. But like, why don't kids in grade 5 learn about money and health? Like, that seems like the only important thing we should learn in our adult lives, right? I don't use any organic chemistry anymore, but I do need to know how to be healthy. I need to know how a credit card works. Why can't we talk about this? So I think, and it's not to say like, okay, when someone comes in with a bunion, you say, hey, you should buy Bitcoin. No. It's not saying that. But I think just understanding the mechanics of how this whole thing works allows us as guides who are helping other people navigate this space of health, have a clearer understanding of what the landscape's like, so that we can ask better questions to stimulate patients and people we work with to question their own assumptions, to say, oh, that's a blind spot. I actually don't understand that. Maybe I'll learn that. I'm not going to expect you to teach it to me, but now I know that I don't know that, and it's important. Thank you for letting me know. I'll learn about that, and we'll chat about it next time. And I think that's really this, to kind of tie things together. That is the health generalist with a specialty, is someone who understands the landscape of health and all the variables that go into individual health, and can then ask the right questions to guide a person to go on their own journey to kind of like navigate through that, right? Like, we're guides. We're not doing the work for people. We're making sure their time gets put to good use when they're committed to actually working on something. So yeah, those are the 3 frameworks. I think that was pretty good. We're at 28 minutes, so we did pretty good. Anything you want to say before we sort of wrap this up?
I think this is where the gold is as a natural podiatrist, where you stop chasing fixing pain, but you start chasing helping someone get a more functional life. And when that starts getting fed back to you with feedback from clients, that's where you're like, oh, this is a great job. I'm really enjoying this job, because this person's not even worried about that pain. They're worried about how well they're functioning. They're looking at a quality of life. And we're, as a health generalist with this specialty, we have this unique ability or unique opportunity to have that effect on people's lives, or help people have that effect on their own lives. And so that's where the gold is. And I hope that that's what natural podiatry can bring to other podiatrists, so that we're not just so focused on the little issue that is the foot.
Yeah. And I love, you keep saying opportunity. I think that's exactly what it is, right? Like, a lot of people are going to have foot problems because our shoes aren't shaped like feet. So it fucks up people's feet. Every person that comes in to see you with a foot problem, you have an opportunity to help that person change their lives, change their health, better understand health. I would argue that improving health only comes from better understanding health. So it's like, yeah, we can, it's like this new model is going to be for people who resonate with the approach of a 6-pillar approach to health. And like, if they go to their doctors and they're like, I'm not sleeping very well, and doctor gives them pills, and they come to you and say, I'm not sleeping well, and you say, well, did you know these things affect sleep? Here's some resources for understanding sleep. This is how I improve my sleep. Well, guess what? You just, the thing they went to see their doctor for, they're not going to go see Andy for, because Andy knows more about that than the doctor. This is the reality, right? Andy understands health. The doctor understands medicine. Health isn't achieved through medicine. Health is achieved through taking responsibility and having good information. So feet
are the gateway to better health. That's what you said at the start of all of this, like 3 or 4 years ago. Feet are a gateway drug for better health.
Yeah. Build health from the foundation. Feet are your foundation.
Yeah.
So to everyone listening, thank you for listening, for being here, for helping to reshape a new path for podiatry in a more natural way. We hope you found this lesson to be helpful, and we look forward to as much open, honest feedback and as many logical criticisms as we can receive. This is how we get better. This is how we improve these models. And collectively, we can do way more together by just criticizing and having beautiful disagreements with each other's perspectives, and really dialing in what is truth, what can we agree on. So thanks again for helping build this, and we'll catch you in the next lesson. Ciao for now.